I am sitting in my bedroom, working from home like I'm sure most of you are. Mostly for my own amusement today, I am also wearing a fez. I know we don't have video, so it's really just so you can picture that. I am joined by my colleague Matt Lineker, who is sitting there on the chat, also known as Tota Community. And Matt will be making sure that I take plenty of breaths and moments to take a sip of water, and will be letting me know if there's any questions in the chat, because I'll be sharing my screen and can't always see the chat. But I will be stopping periodically and checking in with them to see if there's anything you guys need me to go through again, or didn't understand, or have any questions. I see a few familiar names in the attendee list, so welcome. For those that I've met before, hello. For those who I haven't, great to meet you. Thank you for joining. Today's session will be a mix of a couple of slides, really just as placeholders. Predominantly, I'll be moving over to my local Totara Learn 12 site and showing you kind of live what I want to talk about. Excuse me, I've suddenly got that hymns. Matt, anything to add?
Sorry, I'm on mute. No, just hey, hi, welcome. Yep, feel free to add any questions, and just while we're recording the session, so you can have this afterwards to look at when Meredith's finished as well.
Excellent. So, no, next, there we go. So, I think, Totara Learn is a very powerful, highly configurable system, which means there's usually something to try and something to learn. Particularly, we have a lot of updates. In fact, there was a new release overnight, just a sub-point release, so just a few fixes and some small features. But it is a big system, so there is a lot to learn. So these are just a few things that I think are not exactly hidden, but kind of buried a little bit, or ways of using functionality that is more obvious in a slightly less obvious way. So because there is no big red self-destruct button in Totara Learn, excuse me, please, it's just I'm going to call it hay fever, please don't be concerned. Because there is so much to try and to play with, I do suggest you experiment. There's no self-destruct button, but if you only have a production site available to you, I do suggest that you use the Totara Learn demo site for any experimentation. Otherwise, just on your local staging site is great. The demo site is wiped every 24 hours, so there'll be no trace of your testing in there. And there's a range of logins available there for you to really just go cocoa bananas in there and test to your heart's content. And there's a lot of users and data, so you can play with a lot of content in there. Now, this is my treasure map. So these are the 8 things that I want to cover today. I thought rather than release them one by one, you could look through the list and see if this is something that you already know and are using, then maybe you could just listen with half one ear and watch YouTube with the other. If some of these might be of interest to you, please stay on for my live demo. So now I'm going to attempt to switch screens. Has anything come through in the chat just while I'm doing that, Matt?
Nothing so far, but feel free to ask questions as we go, and we'll pause and answer those.
Excellent. So let's get started. So can I confirm that you're seeing my local Totara site, please?
Yep, that's looking good.
Thanks. So this is just my local install sitting on my little laptop. There are no custom developments, there's no custom theme. Everything you see here is configuration based. Just in case you're concerned that I'm doing something particularly funky, it's in everything I can do here on 12, you can also do on your 12 installation. So the first thing I want to go to is talk about the activity results block. Now, I've just got a couple of course shortcuts here. Oops, that's what I wanted to do. There we go. No, it's still not playing dice. There we go. A little HTTPS snuck in there. So the first one I want to talk about is the activity results block. For those of you that may have joined my gamification webinar a couple of weeks back, I mentioned this as well. I just want to go through that in a little bit more detail because it is a bit of one of those blocks. There are a lot of blocks within Learn, so it can be easily overlooked. And it's got some interesting options. So in this course here, you'll see there's 2 activity results blocks sitting on the side here. You can use this to display as a leaderboard for any activities, any graded or scaled activities across your particular course. Now, you can have any number of instances of this activity block, so there's 2 in this case, and so you can have them for more than just maybe one quiz or final assessment. You can have them for all the quizzes if you so wish. And all of the different design options and configuration options which apply to blocks, like being able to remove the header area or change the name of the block, are applicable to the activity results block. So what makes this block kind of interesting, it's not only that it can be activity, it show like as a leaderboard and encourage people to maybe be more competitive and to strive for better results. It can also be used so people can judge where they're sort of sitting across the different, across from their peers. So this bottom leaderboard here shows both low grades and high grades, so people can see kind of where they're sitting across within the course. Now there's a lot of display. Excuse me, my internet just flickered there. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sound good.
Okay, great, thank you. I just got a bit of a lag on my site, I'm concerned. Okay, so there's a lot of configuration options. So if I go and turn editing on here, you'll see that you can have a configurable number of top grades here. At the moment, I've got 5. And if you so wish, you can also have the lower grades, which you saw in that other instance of the block. And you've got some privacy options here. So you can opt to display full names, you can display ID numbers, or you can have anonymous results. If you choose ID numbers, then that's the ID field that you see within a user profile area, which is also tied to HR import, or anonymous results, which just displays the word user. So just to show what I was talking about in terms of this user information, I'm just logged in. This is just the admin user account. If I go to edit profile, under the optional area, there's a field here for ID number, and that's where you can generate that number and which will display in that activity results block. So it's a bit like at university when they have a list of your ID number and you can check your results against that. Now you can also display the grades differently, so it could be as percentages, fractions, or absolute numbers. So let's say something that's graded out of 10, you achieve 10 out of 10, it will be 100%, fraction it will be 10 out of 10, absolute numbers it will just display 10. If it's a particularly competitive course, you might want to add a number of different decimal places. 5 seems like a lot, but maybe there's a big difference for some people there. So that's the activity results block. As you can see, this is the anonymous view and it's just saying user. So you've got a few options there, and it's allows people to see where they are within the site, within the course, and maybe stimulate them to achieve some higher results. Any questions before I move on to the next item, Matt?
There's no questions at the moment, but like I say, feel free to pose any you have at any time.
Excellent. All right, so the next one I want to talk about is hidden and restricted labels. Now, labels are probably one of the more flexible activities or resource types within the system. I think my lesson, I'm just going to change the ID number here. This is a course I prepared earlier with a couple of hidden labels. So I'm hidden labels as in activities that you've added and you've changed the visibility restrictions so that they are not visible. So if I turn editing on, this here is a hidden activity, and you can see here I can opt to show it if I so want, versus this label here, which is simply has activity restrictions or visibility restrictions on it. So 2 different things, a couple of different applications here. So for this top one, I'm suggesting that perhaps you consider hiding labels and use them as teacher only or trainer only notes. That might be applicable if you've got a number of different types of trainers or trainers across a large and complex course. So you want to offer prompts at different points for different types of facilitator. The other option is potentially you create your own template course across Totara Learn, and within that template you include these hidden labels, and it provides guidance to new course creators or course managers to add different sort of standard activities. So maybe an introductions forum and maybe a course evaluation, and they can then go ahead and delete those labels once those items are added to their course. So that's one idea around using hidden labels. The other one is just around using the activity restrictions here. So you see this one here has got the activity final assessment might be marked as complete, and it's hidden otherwise. So a user won't see this at all when they work through the course. So if I, just to put my money where my mouth is, if I move over to a learner, here they can't see those hidden teacher notes. Teachers or people with editing trainer rights or trainer rights can see hidden labels by default. And that restriction with the honey badger picture, a learner can't see that at all until they have completed that final assessment. So that's one couple of ideas around hidden labels. If anyone has any other ideas around how they can use them, please do put that into the chat. Now, next is the random glossary block. Now, again, this is one of those, there's probably about 30 or 40 different blocks within Totara Learner's standard, and we don't always get a chance to use them all. And the random glossary block is one I've been a fan of for a long time. And what it allows you to do is create, if I turn it on, you can see what this looks like, create a block which randomly or in a way that you specify, selects an entry from a particular glossary display on a periodic rotating basis. So I have a glossary of terms here, and that could be used to show definitions or of maybe, in this case, I've added some definitions of what a block is and what a certificate is, so relating to Totara Learn, or you could have it as more of what you see here, which is a tip of the day. So I've just used the block renaming options to show and to change it from random glossary block to tip of the day. And you see that learners can jump straight to the glossary if they want by adding a new entry if they have permission, and view all entries again if they have permission. And you may expand that idea out and make it more of a collaborative glossary, so individuals can add their own glossary items, and then you can, over a period of time, display those. So there might be, positive tip or working from home idea of the day. So individuals can go through and add those, and they're displayed in some order across that course. So you can see you can choose how many days before an entry is chosen. It can be any value there, and it can be randomly selected, or it could be the most recently added or modified entry. It could be alphabetical, or it could just be the next entry in order. So if you start at A, or it could go to the next one in A, for example. So it's an interesting idea to use. I've applied this in live sites in the past, and the Totara community is looking at adding one of these. It should be live relatively soon. They're just building up a nice repository of glossary items, so you'll see that applied within the community in the next few weeks. Otherwise, I would have directly linked to that rather than setting one up for myself. Any questions there, Matt?
Just a couple of questions. Irma's got a question. Hi, Irma, because Irma comes to a lot of webinars. Can you hide this activity but still use the block? Or would the block also be hidden? Meredith, you're on mute. Meredith, your sound's gone off.
Oh, that was weird.
You're back now.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so you can hide an individual label, or you can hide a total topic block. I'm actually going to cover that in just in a few tips. It doesn't necessarily mean you hide everything within the topic. You can keep a section, for example, in this topic 3, the topic 3 is available as is the final assessment, but the label is hidden.
Sorry, Emma means the glossary.
Oh, the glossary. Can you hide items within the glossary, as in not display them within the random glossary block? Is that the question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. No. So it's any entry within the block. So you can't hide specific items from the glossary. If you've got items that you don't want to display through there, I would opt to add a second glossary to your system, to your course rather, and then just select to pull glossary items from that.
Okay, Sue's asking, does the glossary box just appear for that course, or can you have it appear on all courses?
If you have a glossary that sits at the site level, you can add that block and pull from that glossary to any course. But because this glossary belongs to this course, then this glossary block will only pull from this particular glossary. I hope that makes sense. I feel like I said the word glossary far too much then in my answer.
That's good. Okay. Robin's asking, do you have any other examples of situations in which you could use the random glossary block?
Well, I mean, stay tuned for the community if you want to weigh into that, Matt, and what we're planning there.
Yeah, sure. So in the community, we're planning to have, well, from advice from Meredith, we're going to have just tips of the day. So we'll have lots of different tips and ideas that basically the glossary block will just throw those out to the users of the community. So it could be that if you have courses or you have a community of your own or a space where people can see things, you could have news items or tips or things that you wanted to put in there. That could be a good example. Other questions? Sorry, Emma's saying, can you use it? So the glossary, can you use it? So can you just use it as a source for the block, but not as an activity in the course?
Yep. So you can, and I'm smiling because I was thinking about including this in the idea, but you can create a glossary which is an orphaned activity. So we've talked about orphan activities a couple of times. So very quickly, for those who aren't aware of what an orphan activity is that you can add a topic to the bottom of your course, and then you can create a glossary within it. In this case, I'm just going to drag and drop. And then you can make sure you've got that link to that glossary if you're going to link to it anywhere. And then you can simply remove that topic. And what that means is that that topic isn't visible to learners, but it's still available. It's kind of lost in space, and they don't see that. And so it's called an orphaned activity. If I switch role to a learner, then you can see that it's not visible at all. But I can, because it's not hidden or restricted from view, it's just unavailable to click on, you can still create that glossary entry there. I can see a lot of chat things coming through. Any other questions?
So Kai's asking a longer question, so I'll just read this slowly.
Okay.
Kai's saying, I often use hidden activities and labels that should only be visible after completing a certain activity. There's a problem that learners have to actualize the browser page to make the hidden label visible. Is there an option to make the label immediately visible?
Oh, I've not come across that issue before. So you mean that perhaps have to refresh the page in order for that to be available? Yeah, I've not had that issue. I guess I would speak with your partner and see if there's maybe something around the refresh rate or caching that they might be able to look at for you. It's not something I've come across, I'm afraid.
Okay, we don't have any other questions at the moment.
Okay. Alrighty, so what are we up to? Meta courses. We're doing well for time too. Alrighty. I'm going to shift it up and we'll go to a new course. Let's see if I can not mess up the copy and paste this time. There we go. So I want to talk about meta courses. Now, this is a quite an unusual piece of functionality. It was developed many, many years ago for an organization which I happen to work for, where their model was that they had an online version of a course and a paper-based correspondence version of the course. Now, both courses had forums and shared the majority of content. However, because of the nature of the delivery of those courses, the assessments were slightly different. Therefore, according to their qualifications authority, they were different courses. So they needed separate environments, but they had the same tutor who was announcing the same things, having the same types of discussions, and ultimately, with a few very minor differences, basically down to a paper-based versus an online medium, we're doing the same course. So rather than reproducing everything in both course environments and all the forum posts, and don't forget assessment 1 is due, and here this is an answer to this question, we wanted to create the idea of one shared course where the individual still only had access to their online version and the paper-based support course, so their online part. It still had one area to join in it, and we just called this meta course. Now, meta courses aren't enabled by default. You'll need to head over to administration, go to plugins, and then over to enrollments, and go to manage enrollment plugins. Now, it's turned on now because for the purposes of this demo, but by default, this course meta link isn't enabled. So you'll first, if you want to have a play with this, first need to check that it's been enabled at the site level. Once it's enabled, you can go into another course. So I'll jump back to my example course, which is meta course. And how it works is that rather than enrolling learners or associating learners with this course, you instead enroll or associate courses or child courses. So if I go into the users area and look at the different enrollment methods available, because I've turned on course meta link, which is this course meta enrollment plugin, the other options aren't really available. And I've got one child course, which I've just called Meta Child 1, just so we could clearly identify it. And that has been linked to this particular course. Now, just a quick gotcha before I move forward on this. In order to have a course as a meta course, it can't have any learners in it already enrolled. So it's either a new course or a course without any learners in it. To associate more child courses, you just add another instance to this method. You can in fact enroll or add multiple courses at once, or you can do them individually. It doesn't matter. They act in exactly the same way. Meta Child 2 and Meta Child 3. So this is the name of the course, just so I could easily find them, but can't easily add them. Come on, interface. There we go. So those two courses have now been linked or enrolled in this meta course. So the individuals that are part of these 3 child courses are now enrolled or have access to this meta course. So if I jump back to users and have a look at the enrolled users, I've got 3 learners which were individually enrolled in those child courses, and you can see where they came from and how they enrolled from 1, 2, 3, and I labeled them very carefully too, so it would look like it's working as I've suggested it would. So there's a couple of different models of use. There's of course the now very dated example that I provided, but it could be used to bring the learners of different courses together for maybe common elements or social interaction. Or maybe you kind of flip the model on its head where the majority of content is within the meta course and it's discussion that's in the child courses. So maybe there's different groups of users that have similar training requirements, but maybe there's one group that wants to discuss in French and another in German, or some that are marketing focused and some that are sales focused. So similar but slightly different. So there's a couple of exciting options around that. So hopefully that's news to a few people, that course meta link. Any questions on that?
There was just a question from before, from Claire, which was asking, will 13 be incorporating stealth activities instead of needing to rely on the orphaned activities trick?
No, it won't. No.
Thank you.
A very abrupt but polite answer is no, it's not. We haven't really, we've well and truly forked away from Moodle, that being a Moodle feature, as you know, Claire. So we're not really looking at incorporating any more Moodle functionality. We're just too different now. We may look down the track of implementing something similar, but it won't be identical. It certainly won't be the same code.
That's fine. Dan was asking, what would be the main benefit of using a meta course?
The main benefit, well, I guess it would be bringing together learners in different courses that would benefit from interaction together, whether that be discussion or maybe, you know, a collaborative activity. That's one benefit. I guess there's two main benefits, which is that flipped idea where users that have a lot of shared content within a course but have individual or specific needs as a group can go out into separate, more private areas and have that discussion without it kind of impacting on other discrete groups of interest.
Sounds quite good for like mentoring and things as well, maybe.
It's possible. Again, I mean, I'd love to hear everyone's ideas on different models of use. That'd be fantastic. We might have to do a dedicated webinar on ideas if you guys come up with enough.
Another one here. Is it possible to use the same groups for all meta-linked courses?
Can you say that again, please, Matt?
Yeah, sure. Is it possible to use the same groups for all the meta-linked courses?
The same groups. Is the question groups as in course groups in the true nature of when you create a course, you can add individuals to a group, or are we talking about another collection of users? That could just be clarified, please.
Just wait for that to be clarified. Another question would be, do certifications work with meta courses?
I don't know. I've never tried that. Give it a crack and let us know. I've not really thought about certifications. I would imagine they were because they're still courses and behave like courses. The only difference is the enrollment method. So I'd be very surprised if they didn't.
Mag's asking groups across the courses. So is it possible to use groups across courses, the same groups across courses? Courses?
Yeah. Well, when we added the users, what I'll do is remove one and then add it back in. There is an option here for adding users to a new group, which you could align with the existing groups, but they don't shift into new groups. It's essentially a new course. It's just linked in a slightly different way, or users are enrolled in a slightly different way. So you could kind of do it as a workaround, but not directly. I feel like I need to put Meta Child 3 back for some reason. I feel all nostalgic for it. Hopefully that answered your question.
Okay, we don't have any other questions at the moment either.
Okay, cool. Moving on to the next item. No, that's not what I want. Right. Let's go to this course. Okay. Access. No, that's not the course I want to go to. What course was it? 6. The bug attacking me. Come on, Google. All right. So we talked a little bit about this already. So this is access restrictions for entire topic restrictions. Entire topic sections. So this bottom section here is completely unavailable. And to learners, again, I'll just show what that looks like for a learner, is that congratulations section at the very bottom isn't visible in any way. And the reason you might use this is that you might have a number of items that are contingent on the completion of a particular activity or other criteria. And it's a way of simplifying all the access restrictions and visibility options that you have. And it also means that you can add things like a label in there for something interesting. So in this case, the individual has completed the final assessment and the evaluation. They get their certificate in here and they can see that there's a label here with an access an enrollment key to their next suggested course. And this is a little bit hidden, I think, because if I turn editing on and look at this particular topic block, it kind of sits here at the bottom a little bit and it's collapsed. It's very easy to overlook, but it allows you to add access restrictions like you would for any other activity. So all the other access options are available. So not only will this allow you to kind of collect or bundle up items that are contingent on other items, and just generally make that page, or that course page, a little easier to understand in terms of the different restrictions, and have a lot of items that are available all at once. You can use this for a degree of gamification. Again, you might have that a really large topic block with a bunch of hidden items. It could even be items that are offered up because an individual hasn't completed other items. Maybe you're using the time since activity completion, and an individual's only offered a new section if they have started the course but then took a few weeks off to complete the rest, and maybe a new section is provided to them to get back up to speed or to refresh what they had learned previously. There's a number of options there. Remember, of course, that when you add these restrictions, I should go back to this page, if you truly want it to be 100% invisible to users, rather than them seeing that that content is there but they simply can't access it, there's a little tiny toggle button here, this little eye here, that you need to make sure that that is set to entirely hidden, so the little cross across it. Otherwise they can see that that restriction exists and it's not entirely invisible. Alrighty, any questions there, Matt?
No one's asked any questions about that specifically so far. If anyone does have any, feel free to post them now.
We've still got folks in the call with us.
There's 4 people here.
Excellent. I do get lonely sometimes. It's just me and the seagulls here. Okay. Jumping back to this course here. So the last 2 items. First one is the Q&A forum type. Now, forums are a well-used activity type across Totara Learn. A lot of people use them for things like introductions and just general discussions and for requesting help. But there is a different type rather than the standard use. I've got this what would you do forum that I've created. And in the settings here, you'll see that it is a Q&A forum. So this is where you can select Q&A forum. And what this means is that when you create the forum and create the description for the forum, your first post is visible, and an individual needs to reply to that first post before they can see the responses of other users or other learners in the site. So it's ideal for scenario-based learning. So in this case, it's just some nonsense around someone who works in a mailroom, and just what may be health and safety requirements that she might have in terms of opening little letters and parcels from different areas. So one of the benefits of this, apart from it just generally being a way to create an interesting scenario-based learning model, is that it prevents those forum lurkers. So people that read all the forums and are kind of quietly participating but don't respond for whatever reason. And it also can offer people a little bit more confidence to reply to messages. Often you go into forums, maybe you're a couple of days late on the last post, and what you would have said, 50 of your learning peers have already said. So you think, what's the point of me responding? It just looks like I'm saying, yeah, what she said. But this here means that you have the opportunity to post your bit without knowing who has said what, and then you can see everyone else's responses. You can be a little bit more complicated. You can have multiple threads here so that people can have ongoing scenarios or kind of branching ideas where, all right, you've suggested this to Jenny, but Jenny disagrees. How would you try to convince her, type of thing? So just to show you what that looks like, here we've got example learner who has posted. I'm going to jump in as Jane learner. All right, Jane. And here's Jane, what would you do? That scenario question. here's the discussion, and she can see that there is a reply, but not who has done it and what the content of it is. So she can, only after Jane replies, and post that, can she then see, well, once it's through the editing time, then she can see the previous message. Any questions on Q&A before we follow up with the final item, which is custom scales?
I think everyone is excited to get on to custom scales.
I can only hope. Alrighty. So I've created a forum here, which is called Could I Get a Little Help Here? And this is people requesting assistance and hoping that their peers might provide some help. And what we can do with custom scales is set, actually I need to log out as Jane. Sorry, Jane, you are no use to me now. I need admin rights. Is you can create a series of grades or non-point-based or school-based grades called scales. So under the administration menu, if you head over to the grade section and then under scales, you can create any number of these custom scales. See, I've got one here which we're about to use, but when you add a new one, you can give it a name and you can add as many values here, and you can start from low, so and then it's just comma separated, and you can add as many items as you like, and keep going as whatever you like. I don't think I'll save that just in case someone comes across that one day when I'm doing a demo. So I've got this scale here. It's not tied to any point value, but you can see that in this particular scale across here, there's definitely more positive items or values across this scale. So back into this course where I've got my forum here, can I get a little help here? Logged in as an administrator, I've created an example discussion here, and I can just fill a status here. And Jane here has posted something, and I've provided her a rating from that scale that you've got here. Now, by default, admin, site managers, editing trainers, and trainers can provide a scale or a rating. But you can easily change the permissions for the forum so that learners can also provide ratings to their peers. You go into the permissions section of that particular forum, and then there's a particular capability called mod forum rate, and you can see I've already added it here, but you simply click on the plus and you can allow the learner, because it's already added, it's blanked out, so that you might want to award more soft skills rather than numerical things. So people demonstrating constructive or helpful behavior, or being engaged, and that might help you acknowledge their work. You can look at badging for people that have a high constructive or helpful rate towards the end of the course. You can use this in a few ways. And what's interesting about these scales is that you can collect them in a different way, or count them in different ways. So there's, go into the settings and then ratings. It works just like a scale, like a standard grade, where you can perhaps have a count or a maximum or a sum. I think averages, we all have good days and bad days when we're more constructive and less constructive. So we're looking at an average here. Because I've already awarded a grade, I can't change that, but otherwise you could choose between scale and point and then which scale, and that was the name of my example there. So you've got a lot of options around how this might be applied. It could be only given by trainers, it might be peers providing feedback on various things. So it's not just forums you can apply ratings to. You can apply ratings to things like database activities or glossary items, anything that's relevant. I'm trying to think of another item, but probably those three, and the sort of social tools where ratings make the most sense. Now, interesting, you can use scales for activity results. Just tying it back to the first item, as it happens, you can use scales for activity results as well. So if I go into, I can select that particular forum, it's selected already. And if I add that in, you can see Jane Lerner is currently super helpful. Again, that might encourage people to be more constructive or kind, or indeed post better results, more accurate or engaged comments across particular items if you use the activity results block. So that brings me to the bottom of my list. It's about the right timing. Let me flick back to my PowerPoint, hopefully. There's my treasure map. Very quickly, actually, if I just turn it on properly, go on, little slideshow. There we go. The stuff that I've covered today is all within the help documentation, and the help documentation is that tips and tricks like what I've just gone through today are scattered through the documentation, which is under constant update and improvement. So do check the help documentation. Likewise, I've mentioned a couple of kind of more advanced activity types today, like the database and workshop and lesson, and we've recently launched courses on the Academy on those 3 activity types, which can be kind of challenging if you've not used them before, and there is already a course there on glossary. And then there's the community forums, so you're welcome to jump in there, ask questions, offer other people ideas, tips and tricks, and maybe provide responses to people asking questions, something that you've got experience with already. Maybe jump in and help your peers, particularly important at the moment. So, any other questions in there, Matt?
Just one question from before was, can we completely hide a post, not showing even the alert that was shown with regard to forum posts?
Not an individual post, no. You could hide the forum, but not an individual post. If you needed to do that, I would suggest you create a hidden forum and move that post to that hidden forum. Moving discussions out of or hiding them can be difficult in terms of that narrative flow. So it'd be interesting to see what your use case is here, that you'd want to hide an individual item. Was there anything else there in the chat, Matt?
No one's asked any more questions. Feel free to throw them in now if you have anything else you'd like to ask, even if it's not related. Nah, it helps if it is.
I am, to let everyone know, the Fez has stayed on for the duration of today's webinar. It's now at a very jaunty angle. I found that the little tassel was very much getting in my face, so I think I've really mastered the art of the Fez while you were all here to witness. Thank you so much. Was there anything else up in the chat?
No, Sue's just saying thank you. She's got a page of notes to try out.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I've got another session on same sort of things, but for administrators, not necessarily restricted to administrators, but stuff generally that you'll be jumping into the administration menu a fair bit for. So that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. I knew it would be you, Sean, that asked that. As soon as I saw that you joined the call, it would be you. There are absolutely no chances of seeing me in this Fez. It's very much the benefit of having my video turned off and for you guys to use your imagination. I look great though. Thank you so much for joining me. Do join me again for the administrator session in a couple of weeks' time. Sign up, share, like, and join. So thank you, thank you so much. Anything to close out with, Matt?
No, I think people are slowly drifting off now. But
okay. All right. Thanks everyone for your time.